Well, hey guys, welcome back. Today's gonna be really good. I have my friend Kirk Cameron, and I think everybody my age knows who Kirk Cameron is. Maybe a few youngsters who listen to this show may not know who you are, but they're certainly gonna learn today. Not only amazing things you've done, but more importantly, the amazing things that you're doing. So, man, welcome to Texas.
Thank you.
Being here.
Yeah, we didn't do combat time together. It was a whole different relationship back when we were kids, and I was on a TV show, and you may have seen Growing Pains a couple of times.
In fact, I've been holding this thing under my pillow since 1985, and I even took it to Afghanistan with me, and I saved it all to this day. Hope that you would sign my cover of Teen Beat. So, like I said, it was under my pillow forever. I took it to Afghanistan on my deployments, and
man, that's blackmail stuff right there. I mean, my kids, they're so embarrassed about this. It's so cringy to them that my son said to me once, he's like, "Dad," he's like, "burn these things." He's like, "This is awful. People find out that you're my dad. That makes me look bad." He's like, "You should have thought of me before you took that picture."
My sister had the posters up.
And, like, James, I hadn't even met your mom yet. You weren't even a thought in my mind at that point.
What was it? It was Teen Beat, Teen Bop, was it?
Yeah, Tiger Beat, Teen Beat, 17, all the teens.
Yeah. You were the guy. You were the guy. Not the guy, the kid. Like, how old were you in these?
I think about 14 was when Growing Pains started. So that's kind of kicked everything off. And, there's a whole slew of us. Actually, all these guys right here, Ralph Macchio and Corey Haim and Bon Jovi and the rest. And that probably lasted, Growing Pains was on about 6 years. Okay. 6, 7 years. And then by that time, I had gotten married and started a family. And so then everything then shifted over to, the guy from Wonder Years or somebody like that.
Yeah. Well, for those who wonder what we're talking about, rather read your bio. Bear with me a second here. Kirk Cameron is an actor, producer, and passionate advocate for faith and family values, most known for his iconic role as Mike Seaver on the beloved 1980s sitcom Growing Pains. Kirk has since dedicated his life to sharing the transformative power of Christianity through various media platforms. Kirk has starred in numerous films, including the Left Behind series, which explores themes of hope and redemption in an uncertain world. His commitment to his faith is evident in all he does, whether through his evangelistic efforts, public speaking, his ministry work with The Way of the Master, or hosting all expenses paid summer camps for terminally ill children and their families called Camp Firefly. Kirk is also a devoted husband of 31 years to fellow actor Chelsea Noble and the loving father of 6 and a brand new
grandbaby.
Yes. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
His family-centered approach and deep faith guide his mission and inspire others to embrace their spiritual journey and live purposefully. Man, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
Super excited. And I was just recently on your show, Takeaways. With TVN. So.
Yeah, we had a good time. So this is great. It's great to be here on the coolest set of any show.
This is super. Outside the building, no one knows what this is. It looks like an old building, but old metal building, but it's a great set. Our team does a great job. For those that don't know, everybody gets their own background, and we did a campfire for Kirk because one of the highlights of today's show is going to be American Campfire Revival, and we're going to work towards that. Actually, I want to talk to you about a couple of things. I want to talk about Growing Pains, and I want to talk about your journey from being an atheist to being a believer. I'm super interested because I love the Left Behind series, so I'm super interested in some of that and how that played in your faith. I want to talk about why you fight for children, how important children are in today's world, and why people from communities all over the world, not just America, need to be fighting for children. The new Mr. Rogers, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about American Campfire Revival, and we're gonna push towards that being the center point of today's conversation. And then you have a new book coming out, so I want to make sure we talk a lot about the new book and how people could learn about it and get involved in it. But before we get into all that, I want to start and ask you, how did you get into acting at such an early age? Like, what was that dynamic with your family? How you grew up? How'd you get pushed into being on the star of Growing Pains?
Well, thank you. Thank you again for letting me spend this time with you on Resilient. I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid. Never wanted to be an actor. It was the furthest thing from my mind. Nobody in my family was in the entertainment industry. Some people know that my little sister, Candace Cameron Bure, is DJ Tanner on Full House. Some people didn't know that, and then when I tell them, they're just like, right? They're like, "Oh yeah, Cameron, I get it." But we started out, my dad's a PE teacher at school. My mom was raising us kids. I got 3 little sisters. And I wanted to be like Ben Carson. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a surgeon. I loved math. I loved history. I loved science. I loved biology. And I wanted to go into those kinds of fields. Education was a favorite subject of mine. and wanted to go to college. And then when I was 9 years old, my mom had a friend whose son was in the entertainment industry. He's a little kid who was on a show called 8 is Enough with Dick Van Patten way back in the day. She said, you ought to go take your kids down there and see this agent. So my mom took us down there, and she signed me up. I started doing McDonald's commercials, 409 Cleaner commercials, Fruit Loops, Fruit Roll-Ups, all this stuff. And then I auditioned for a part on a TV show called Growing Pains, starring Alan Thicke, the talk show host from Canada. And I got the part, and the show took off. And pretty quickly, the storylines started to shift and find, where the audience was really keying in. And pretty soon, I was the 14-year-old hormone with feet who was dating every girl at the high school, getting into trouble, sneaking out the window at night. But he was a great character that people really liked. He was charming, he was endearing, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's nothing I wanted, wasn't an aspiration of mine, but at the end, it turned out to be a beautiful career opportunity for me, and so many great things have happened because of it.
What was it like being on it? I mean, because Growing Pains was super. It was like one of the most popular shows on television at that time.
Yeah, that's right. So, imagine if there were only, 2 gun manufacturers.
Right.
Well, then they'd have a lot of guns and they'd be really popular because there is nobody else. Well, we had in the 1980s ABC, NBC, and CBS. There was no Netflix. There was no Hulu. There was no Amazon, nothing like that. So Growing Pains and a few other shows are the shows that everybody watched. So millions and millions of people grew up with me on TV. That's how you ended up having this picture underneath your pillow all those years.
Yeah, I didn't even bring up the poster.
Yeah, let's not even go there.
But being a teenage kid, what was your personal life like? I mean, obviously you had your acting professional life, but as a teenager, you have a personal life too. What was it like? Were you like, did you isolate yourself, or were you?
So I started acting when I was about 9. Growing Pains started when I was about 14. And, I was like any other 14-year-old kid. I was awkward. I was just sort of gangly, no muscles, trying to, get a girl to, look at me, and pimples on my face. And here I'm on TV. And now you're sort of like a fish in a fishbowl. And so I was very kind of introverted, and I was just shy. Even though I was on TV, on a stage, and millions of people on a TV show, I was just personally insecure.
Yeah.
And it was an awkward teenage life, but it was my life. And I don't have another teenage life to compare it to. So I got to say that was normal for me. But I eventually came to love what I did, and I thought acting was fun. Again, it was never a big goal. Today, I don't miss it. When I do have a chance to act, I'll do it if I need to, but I'd rather be doing other things.
Yeah.
So my teenage life was, I look back and I go, I couldn't have written the story any better, because it was because of that I ended up doing this show, Growing Pains, which led to other things that you had mentioned today, movies and TV shows. And then also, my girlfriend on Growing Pains ended up being the love of my life. We got married. We've now been married for 35 years. We have 6 children and a granddaughter. So I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, I had botched it in the beginning. I said 35 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
During that time, were you, I mean, now that you're, kind of known for your faith and your walk in faith, like, were you a believer at that time?
No. I was a believer in other things. I was a believer in atheism. And then I lost my faith in atheism when I was about 18 years old. And I like to tell people I'm a recovering atheist. I lost my faith in this idea that the universe popped out of nothing. All of it is here by time and chance and reproductive advantage, not the result of an intelligent, powerful, personal designer. So that's where I am now. But back then, no, like I said, I never went to church. I thought Jesus was part of a different Trinity: the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and God.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was about 17 years old that I met a really cute girl on the set of Growing Pains, and she was one of 3 identical triplets. And I was struggling with which one to ask out on a date, because I couldn't tell them apart. They were identical. And so I was like, door number 1, door number 2, and I asked this girl out, and she invited me to come meet her family. Sweet girl, sweet family. And the address she gave me on a Sunday morning, I found out was a church. So here I am showing up, thinking that God is just a great big fairy tale in this church full of 2,000 people with a man in a suit up front and a big Bible preaching this message. And I just wanted the girl. I wasn't interested in God. But I heard a message that really got me thinking, asking good questions, and it led me to a decision that ended up changing my life.
What was it?
Well, the questions were all about God and other religions, about evolution, about Islam, about Hinduism, Buddhism. What about all these other questions? How did Noah fit all those animals in the ark? And how could a good and loving God let children die and suffer? And ultimately, I got a lot of those questions answered by really smart people. I didn't think there were answers. And this girl's father said to me something that really put everything in perspective. He said, Kirk, if you want to know God, you've got to go to him yourself. He's not a force. He's not an idea. He's not a problem for you to solve. He's not some sort of a mirage that you need to believe in against all science. He made your eyes and he sees you. He keeps your heart beating at night. He hears you when you talk because he made your ears. And the deal is you have to go to him personally, and you need to go to him on his terms, not yours. I said, what are those? He says, humility and faith. I didn't have either one. I'm an atheist. And I think I'm big man on campus at Warner Brothers Studios at 17 years old.
Yeah.
Right? Entitled, arrogant.
Everybody tells you how great you are.
Exactly. And the reason that was important for me was because at that time, if you wanted to get an appointment with this guy, you'd have to go to him on his terms.
Yeah.
Between scenes, through a manager at a time that was convenient for him. And he was pointing out that if I was going to talk to the creator of the universe, I would not be the celebrity in that relationship. And I remember just sitting in my sports car parked on the side of the road thinking about that one day I would die and find out if what that preacher said was true. If there really is a God and there really is a heaven and a hell, I knew I shouldn't go to heaven. It's not going to go good for me because I knew all the bad things that I'd done. I never even acknowledged God. I never thanked him for my life and for all the great things that had happened. And I decided that I would pray. I didn't know how to do it, but I just quietly, in my car, closed my eyes and just said, God, if you're there, show me, make me the man that you want me to be. I didn't have any theology to speak of. I couldn't have answered most of the questions that I still had, but I had this sense that maybe God could get through and maybe he would show me and maybe he was going to help me. And I began going to church, reading the Bible, and that began to change me on the inside and sent me in a new direction. I'm still a very, very curious person. I have so many questions, but I found that there are so many more questions outside of faith in God. There are so many unanswerable questions about beauty, truth, and morality apart from inspired scripture that I would be a fool, in my view, to not believe in the God that I believe in. And I'm so grateful that he got to me at a young age.
Yeah. So you make this decision. Was there discipleship and follow-up from that? Like, because you're coming from this own isolated world, did you start connecting with people, like-minded people that help you in that journey?
Most of my friends at the time that I was on Growing Pains that were good influences in my life were outside of the Hollywood industry. For me, the balance was really good to have friends outside of Hollywood, friends who were older, friends who had nothing to do or could not benefit from what I was offering in the industry. In fact, I lost some friendships because I became famous. My buddies who used to be pals with me, now they've got these other friends who are like, you're just kissing up to the movie star, right? Making them look bad, right? They sort of kind of like undermining their credibility. And so I found that there were other friends that I trusted, and a lot of my time was taken up by my work, and so I didn't have time to hang out and just do a lot of the things that other young teenagers were doing, and even teenage stars. If you look at this, half these people are either in jail or dead, or and part of it is no fault of their own because you're in an industry and a system that feeds this ego and this pride and gives you money and opportunity and girls and drugs and alcohol, and the only thing that they're really interested in is return on investment, and they want to pump you up and puff you up to be the coolest, sexiest person in the world so that they can make money off of you. But they're not looking to your mental health, your physical health, your moral health, your spiritual health. And so it was my friends outside the industry that I clung to as lifelines.
Because there's quite a bit of time between that moment of becoming a Christian, entering that walk of faith, till you get into Christian films, correct?
Yeah, it wasn't that long. It was interesting. I had I would have considered myself to be a Christian at about 18 years old, 19 years old. And I got married. I'm trying to think if I got all the years exactly right, but I got married to my on-screen sweetheart, Chelsea, which I got a fun story to tell you about that. Yeah. Our first kiss. Don't let me forget.
Yeah.
She was reading a book called Left Behind. And she said, this would turn out to be a great movie one day. It'd be really cool if you could play the part of the main reporter, Buck Williams. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't read the book. And then like 2 months later, production company called and said, hey, we're making this movie called Left Behind. We'd like you to play the main reporter, Buck Williams. I thought, oh, wow. So, I got the script and we ended up doing the movie, and we did 3 of those movies. I enjoyed being part of projects that I felt was advancing a value system and a narrative that I could believe in. So much of my life was all about the land of make-believe. Growing Pains was a wholesome family show, so that was something to believe in. But so much of what we do, it's all fake, it's phony. It's just making you feel stuff so that you buy tickets. But doing things that aligned with my worldview, sensibilities, and faith values gave a deeper sense of meaning, and I could really pour myself into those projects with all my heart.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the Left Behind series, and I always wondered, how being an actor in that role, how that impacted your faith or strengthened your faith.
Yeah,
just to live that out through on screen.
Yeah, it was a little surreal, particularly given the subject matter of Left Behind. So Left Behind, for those who are not familiar with Left Behind, there was a phenomenally successful series of books that sold, I think, tens of millions of copies of this fictional narrative that takes place in what some believe is the biblical framework, particularly in the book of Revelation and Daniel and others, about the end of the world and how the whole thing's going to go down. And it was very, very compelling, very well written as books. And then when they turn them into the movies, of course, you got this built-in audience. So for me, I'm thinking, wow, we're making movies about the end of the world and how all this stuff is going to go down, maybe in my lifetime. And a lot of people felt that way too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, before we move forward, tell us about the kiss.
The kiss. Oh, yeah. It's how I set the hook, and I got her to marry me.
Okay.
So my wife is exceedingly beautiful, and this was Mike Seaver's girlfriend, and I stole her right out from underneath him. And he was not very resilient. He just rolled over immediately when I asked her out on a date. And I remember meeting her actually on the set of my sister's show, Full House, because she was there visiting somebody else that she knew on her set. But I met her that day, and she asked me to take a picture with her, with a disabled friend in a wheelchair. And my mom was there with my little sister, Candace. And later, my mom said, do you remember that real pretty girl that you met on the set? I said, of course. How could I forget? She says, well, I've seen her here before, and she's even more beautiful on the inside than she is on the outside. And she said, I'm praying that one day you meet a girl just like her and you marry her. Well, lo and behold, years later, that is the girl that I met again on the set of Growing Pains, and I did marry her. And our first kiss happened when, in the script, Mike Seaver, my character, was in a school play together with her character. And we were in this scene where it was like, I was going away on a train. I think it was Our Town was the name of the play. And I said, Virginia or Elizabeth or whatever her name was, don't worry, I'm coming back. Don't forget about me. And I give her this kiss goodbye. I get on a train and I head out of town. And this scene made me panic because I had to kiss this girl, and I really thought she was beautiful, and I was so nervous. Like, I'm going to kiss her, and then I got no chance at all. Because, like, I kiss with, like, the lips of a chicken. And she is just going to be horrified at my inability to kiss her. And so, like, I was practicing in the mirror, and, I was, like, just so sweating nervous. And we got to that scene every day in rehearsals, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we'd get to that part, and I'd say, and then Mike kisses Kate, and then he gets on the train, and I would walk off the set. And she was kind of new, so she didn't know that I was skipping over something that I was supposed to do. But I was saving it for the tape day. And then the final day, the audience rolls in, we're doing it, and I can't hide anymore. And so I'm thinking, I gotta somehow turn this into a joke. I gotta break the ice. And so I said, hold on just a second, and I ran backstage to the first aid kit in the prop department. I started rummaging through it, and I found a tube of Ambisol. That's that gum-numbing gel that you put on a toothache, like Novocaine.
Yeah.
And I put it on my lips like it was like Carmex, like Vaseline, like chapstick. And I came out, I said, all right, ready. And we did the whole scene. I said, don't forget about me. I'm coming back. I leaned in. I gave her a big kiss, just planted one right on her. And she looked at me, and all of a sudden, her lips are starting to tingle, and she starts licking her lips like, what is this goo on my lips? And all of a sudden, her tongue starts to go numb. Her whole mouth starts to freeze up. And she didn't know what to say. And I just said, oh, I'm sorry, cut. We need to stop. I forgot to warn her. This is the effect I have on women when I kiss them. It's paralyzing. And she just looked at me, and she laughed. I think that's what set the hook, because we went on a date after that. We shared a mud pie at Red Robin, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and you didn't have the second kiss. You didn't have the Ambisol.
No, didn't have the Ambisol. No, it didn't quite have the paralyzing effect that the first one did. I was paralyzed, but she was fine.
That's awesome. So you Left Behind is a successful series. And what other films did you do? Like, because you had this transition. What did you do during this gap between Left Behind and this rise in ministry and all the incredible work that you and your wife have done together?
Yeah, well, I did this other movie that came along called Fireproof. Fireproof is a movie about a firefighter whose marriage is going up in flames, and he's a hero with everybody else at work. I don't know if you ever experienced this, but a lot of guys do, right? Like, you're a hero all over the world, or at your job, or in your neighborhood. Whether you're a firefighter, you're a police officer, or whether you're just you're a salesman, or whatever it is. It's like people appreciate you, and then you feel like you walk in your front door, and you're overlooked, you're unappreciated. You're accused for stuff you didn't do. Well, this is how this guy feels. And what he doesn't realize is that he's the arson burning down his whole marriage because he's so selfish. And his father finally steps in and he says, hey, I got something for you. And he gives him this book called The Love Dare. And it's a challenge to see if he is man enough to demonstrate unconditional love for his wife for 40 days, regardless of her response. And it breaks him. He realizes he can't do it because there's something wrong inside of him. And it's not until he gets his heart right with God and he gets healed that he's then able to win back the heart of his wife over time. And this was another significant movie, not only in my career, but in my life. I mean, it really taught me a lot about what marriage is. Between that and Left Behind and a show that I was doing with a guy from Australia called The Way of the Master, where I'd go out on the streets and engage people about heaven and hell and life and death and all of this kind of stuff. I really developed a taste for doing things that resonated with the theme of what's all this about? What happens out there when we step out of here? Is this all there is? Is it just lights out? Or does it actually matter that we invest in kindness and goodness and bravery and courage and truth? Or is it just, this whole thing's going down in a dumpster fire, so just go get as much as you can while you can?
Man, I had forgot about Fireproof, but it's a movie I've probably seen it a dozen times, because maybe more, because we when Mighty Oaks first started, we were we had a movie night. Yeah, and Fireproof was our the first one that we showed for movie night. And, cool. And I know it's impacted so many marriages.
Cool, man. That's cool. Cool to think that you watched that.
That's a tough book.
Yeah, it is a tough book. Yeah, I've been through it a couple of times, and it's tough. You get to day 7, and you're just like, dang. This is like boot camp for the heart. You start to realize.
Yeah, for those who hadn't read it, the Love Dare is like, I mean, as your character displayed, like, you're trying and it's like one-sided effort, and it's not being reciprocated or even received. Yeah. And the frustration that comes from that. Yeah. Overcoming that frustration. And you can imagine the contrast of what Jesus does for us.
Yeah. That's right. Well, you know what else is cool, Chad, is just that we can talk about spiritual stuff like this, and we got some common ground here. But marriage is so much different than what so many of us think it is when we sign up for it. It's like, hey, you're cute, you like me, I like you. Let's keep this party going for a really long time. We won't be like everybody else. It becomes the old married couple. But what you realize is that marriage is God's idea, and God puts you in this incredible institution and relationship that is sacred. It's a covenant relationship, not a contract relationship, which is different than most other relationships with people. And it's actually a school where you learn how to die to yourself or your marriage will die. And so it actually is training you to become more and more conformed to the kind of man that Jesus was, who laid down his life for others. He didn't come to be served, he came to serve. Yeah. And offer his life as a sacrifice for those who were hopeless and helpless without him. Ultimately, this is the school we sign up for when we say I do at the altar. And I didn't know that, but Fireproof spelled that out and changed that guy from the inside.
Do you think doing Fireproof as an actor helped you in the marriage, to have the marriage you have today?
I think yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it was ultimately written by a couple of guys who are marriage and family counselors at their church. And so
the Kendrick
brothers. Those are the same guys that did War Room,
yeah.
Courageous. Their new movie, The Forge, by the way, if you haven't seen The Forge, it's awesome.
I haven't seen it yet, but
so good.
Everyone's telling me to go watch it.
Yeah, about the older men mentoring the young men.
Yeah.
Discipling them. Because young guys today are just more than ever filled with anxiety, depression, suicide, and lack of identity, lack of purpose.
Yeah.
And your ministry helps so much with that. I'm just so grateful for you, for the Kendrick brothers, and everybody who's pouring into the stuff that really matters.
Yeah, well, you as well. And you and your wife have done a lot in the marriage space, right? You guys have done conferences and speaking, and you're ahead of me. I'm at 29 years. You're at 35 years, and I'll be the first to say I'm far from having it figured out. And but what would you say? Just some, I guess speaking to the men, speaking to the women, like what would you say is like kind of the secret sauce of
the secret hack to the marriage?
Hack to marriage, yeah. Because I'm not only have been married for 35 years, but you're clearly, I mean, every marriage has its struggles, but you clearly are in a really healthy marriage, in a good place, and a place that most people would desire their marriage to be. So what's that?
Thank you. I have a near perfect wife. I don't have a near perfect marriage, and the greatest threat to my marriage I have learned is me. This is really fresh coming from me right now and raw, because I'm learning things in my marriage now that I wish I had learned 30 years ago. And I'm just being, honest with you. It's interesting. I didn't think being on television in these magazines had that big of an effect on me, because I always thought it was kind of silly, right?
Yeah.
These people don't know me, and it's stupid. I got makeup on anyway. Look at me, and
That's like a glamour shot, one of those 80s glamour shots, right?
yeah. But I've grown up spending my whole life pleasing people. Think about it. I'm on a stage, and if people don't do this, if people don't like what I do, I'm done. I'm fired. And so there's this performance loop that you can get wrapped into, even in a marriage, where it's like, hey, if I'm a good husband, if I do this, if I'm a good father, if I'm gonna do whatever, the reward is X, Y, and Z. And I can get into a zone where it's like, I know how this whole thing's supposed to go, and you can get controlling, and I'm trying to write the script, produce the script, I'm funding the script of my marriage and my family. And I forget about the fact that, all these other beautiful people in my life, my wife and my children, friends, these are all gifts from God. These aren't characters that I created who are supposed to stick to the script that I want them to stick to. And so marriage, again, is a school where I'm learning to follow the director, follow the producer, and see how the story turns out. And my job is to be faithful to my own role, and that is to be a good husband, a good father, is to bring honor to God in what I do. And one of the things that I've learned is kind of, it sounds so obvious, but like my wife wants to feel safe. My wife wants to feel safe. I wonder how many women who are married today, even though they've got a guy with a gun like that and they got a big truck like I see everywhere in Texas and all these things, like, oh, baby, you're safe. Don't you have to worry. You're safe. If you ask them, do you feel safe with your husband emotionally?
Yeah.
In terms of his private sexual thought life, do you feel safe with him? Do you feel safe with him being the spiritual leader in your children's lives? The way he talks to you, the way he really feels about you. Do you feel safe and secure that there is a commitment and a level of care there that is so comprehensive, so deep, and so unmoving that you are free to just open yourself up and flourish as the woman God made you to be? I think that's what every wife wants. I think that's what
would say no,
and
right?
most would probably be hard pressed to say that they feel that way.
The security, right? The
security.
Yeah.
But I always thought security was, hey, I got the alarm on the house, we got the guns in the safe, we got the dog at the door.
The paycheck.
You feel safe.
Yeah.
Paycheck.
Food.
That's right.
Head.
The house, right? But there is a level of emotional safety that I think, at least for me, and probably other guys, are maybe a little bit more unaware of, because I don't operate that way. I'm not looking, for somebody to make me feel emotionally safe. Right. I'm a little more task oriented, a little more mission minded, and my wife has been so beautifully made by God to be so caring and nourishing and relationally minded, and the way that she has raised our children is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And what she wants is to not be hurt. She wants to feel safe and protected.
This is a really speaks to me, because I come from a career and community where it's all about performance. Like when you enter into special operations, in the military in general, when you're in a special operations community, everything's competitive, which makes
it better.
Better, yeah, right. We're competing against each other. You want to be the best at everything, and you go to school and competitive things in the unit. And then I come out and I go to compete as a professional fighter, and there's a winner and a loser. It's 50-50. And so you win and you do well there. And then never wanted to do it, but I go into public speaking, and man, when you speak, if you speak and you walk off the stage and everybody's quiet, or people stand up and clap, you're accoladed. And my wife, she's not very impressed by any of that.
Mine either.
Yeah, she's just not impressed by me. She's not.
Which is a gift.
It really is, but I didn't understand that for a while, and so it actually made me bitter. Everyone lifts me up except you. Everyone gives me accolades except the one person I want it from. And so it created a lot of tension between us, and because I didn't want it from everybody else. I wanted it from her. And so it just really created this really pressure between us, to where I was kind of, do you not love me? Do you not respect me? Those things. And because I didn't respond that way, it made her feel unsafe and for me, I'm like, man, there's no more secure place on the planet than for you to be, and safer place than me in my house. Cause I'm thinking of these other things, right? I'm going to provide for you. But for her, she just never felt safe in our marriage because I'm comparing her to other people lifting me up when she's not.
It's just something inside of me is going, not only do I resonate with what you're saying, I think every guy that's listening to this right now who has that sense of I want to be good at what I do, and I try really hard, and I want to have a great marriage they're just going ding, 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 ding. They're totally keyed in on what you're saying right now. I'm learning a lot in this category right now. And it's great, because I know at the end of the day, my wife deserves the greatest husband in the world. And the only way that I can be what she needs me to be is to understand that the performance thing was taken care of by Christ when he hung on a cross, when he lived a perfect life that I couldn't live, died on the cross, took my punishment for me. The performance thing is done. Done.
That's what we have to lay down.
Done. Done. It's all over. The right and wrong stuff, done. Taken care of by him. Performance, taken care of by him. If I try to pick that back up and wave it in my wife's face, I'm diminishing the value of the cross and the work that he did for you and me. That's what it's about, what it amounts to. And now it's thank you. It's thank you. This is an opportunity for me to learn. This is an opportunity for me to grow. And I'm going to be the very most faithful husband, father, Christian, patriot, everything that I can possibly be, out of a heart that's filled with gratitude, not a heart that is longing to be lifted up by my audience or by my wife or by my kids. Mm-hmm. Because that's a trap that will lead to the kind of bitterness and resentment that you're talking about.
Yeah. And I guess for those men listening, that's resonating what we're saying. That's the thing that we have to be able to lay down, right? Is lay down that expectation of being lifted up by anyone, but especially by our spouse, and put that pressure on them to elevate us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was somebody else who was lifted up for us, and then he makes us worthy and right and good and loved and blessed and accepted and complete in him. Yeah, man, that really speaks to me. Hey guys, 10 years ago, I had found myself in a position to where investing in Mighty Oaks and all the different things I'm involved in, I had found myself not prepared for retirement. And I went to my friend Ryan Wheelis at Allied Wealth. He had been a longtime supporter of Mighty Oaks Foundation. From the beginning, he's one of our first donors
to Mighty Oaks, has been a friend for a long time, and I really trusted him. And he has helped me build my retirement and invest in my future through his company, Ally Wealth. He's one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to wealth management, and has taken money that I had stuck away in 401ks that was not really producing and made it produced tenfold. And I'm so happy with the results for me that I asked him to partner with this show, and he is a partner of this show now. And we want to not only let you guys know about Ally Wealth, but we're going to be doing some special episodes on wealth management with Ryan helping co-host them. I say co-host. I'm going to be asking him questions, and we're going to be providing you information on how to best manage your wealth. So if you're like me and you need someone to help you with your retirement, with your investments, with just your overall wealth management, go to allywealth.com and meet Ryan and his team to get you set up. You've done a lot in the space of marriage, but you've also really taken on the mantle of fighting for children. I kind of have to be careful in the space of ministry, because we say, God break our heart for what breaks yours. And there's so many things that my heart's broken for. And there's so many areas I want to go into that my heart wants to pull me into ministry work. And I've been uniquely equipped to serve the veterans, first responders, and the work that I do. But my heart aches for nothing more than our children, the unborn, and the abortion, the fight for life, but especially this attack and assault on our youth in this country, in America. And you've really taken on that fight in a big way. So I'd love to you talk about some of the stuff that you're doing.
Thank you for asking. I see movies like Sound of Freedom, and I see the work that you do, and I see the work that others are doing with Love Justice and other ministries that are rescuing children out of child trafficking. And it just, my jaw drops at the courage and the selflessness of you guys doing this. And yet there is an abduction of an entire generation of children that's going on all across the country in public schools and libraries. And it's a hijacking of their minds and of their hearts. And they're being infiltrated by people that the parents trust, like the teachers and the librarians. And some of them it's not even their fault, because they're beholden to the people who are writing their paycheck and the publishers of the textbooks that are getting into the minds of the kids. And then it's not just the books, obviously. It's mostly the screens. It's what's on their phone. It's on Instagram and TikTok and internet searches. So I decided that I would get into that space. Since I have 6 children and I have a granddaughter, I want to stop being a professional complainer, and I want to be a professional creator. And I want to turn this monster around. And so I wrote a book called As You Grow for little kids, and it teaches them how to grow the sweet fruit of love, kindness, compassion, faithfulness, and self-control. And I wanted to read it in a public library, story hour, like other groups have been reading books to children in story hours, like the drag queens. And I was denied, Chad, by over 50 woke libraries that previously held drag queen story hours for children in those libraries. Yes to them, dudes in dresses, no to me.
Because of the content.
Because of the content.
Right.
Kindness, compassion, togetherness, faith in God. And they said, our values don't align, Mr. Cameron. We're not interested. We're an inclusive community, and so therefore you can't come.
When you say they?
The library leadership.
Okay.
In these downtown libraries. And I went to some of my friends of the news, like Tucker Carlson and some others, and told the story and put these guys on blast and said, hey, that's against the Constitution. You're violating the law, the highest law of the land. That's viewpoint discrimination of the worst kind. It's religious discrimination. And you can't do that. And I'm prepared to assert my constitutional rights in court. And they reversed course. I went to those libraries that they said nobody would show up at. And downtown Indianapolis Library, 6-story building, there were 3,000 parents, grandparents, and kids filling all 6 stories of the building. They told us that they had to leave floors because they exceeded fire codes for capacity. And there were parents down the escalator, out the door, and down the parking lot. They were all singing God Bless America. They were praying, and they were reading books of virtue and character to children. And I found that when we went to New York City, same thing. DC, same thing. The places you wouldn't expect it, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, people come out of the woodwork because they love their children. They see what this woke mind virus is doing to not only our children, but our schools, our government, People are leaving California like rats on a ship that's sinking. They're coming to Texas. They're going to Tennessee. They're going to Florida, going to Idaho. They're looking for freedom. And, this is becoming more and more of an obvious issue to parents because since COVID, their kids went home from school because the schools were shut down. They saw what they were reading and learning online. And now parents are going, holy cow, we're paying for this. We're basically paying for these people to brainwash our kids and indoctrinate them to hate God, hate this country, and hate our family. And to think that they're racist if they're white.
Yeah.
And it's a fight that we've got to get into or we will lose a whole generation. And I think that's the diabolical plan. I think
what's the motivation behind this?
Yeah.
And who's the driving force?
That's the big question. And I always ask that. Usually you can follow the money and find out who the head of the snake is. With regard to children's books, the head of the snake for children's publishing is Scholastic Books. They're the largest publisher of children's books and distributors into schools. And they're the ones pumping out what I would call child porn into libraries. And parents and librarians don't even know that it's there. And kids can check this stuff out. You see guys on the internet reading these books at school board meetings, and they get shut down by the police and told that they can't do it.
Yeah, Reverend John.
John Amachuku.
Yeah, he's coming on next week. Yeah,
right. Like, okay, so you can have the kids read it. Your 5-year-old, but you can't read it to the adults in the school board meeting, and the police tell you that you have to close the book
because it's offensive.
Because it's so offensive.
Yeah.
Facebook won't even let you put pictures of what's in the kids' books on Facebook because it violates community policy standards for inappropriateness. Yeah. Anyway, we've been doing that, and.
What's the name of the book line that
you asked about the source and the head of the snake?
Yeah.
But the book line that I'm with?
Yeah.
Brave Books.
Brave Books.
Brave Books. Pro-God, pro-America values. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Couldn't recommend them more. I go way upstream when I'm looking for sources for stuff. But ultimately, if you ask the principal of the school, he's gonna say like, look, I don't want to be distributing child porn in my stuff. I'm not really looking to just be, a spreader of the woke mind virus to all these children and ruin my country. It's probably not what he's thinking. But his paycheck depends on meeting certain quotas and standards from those higher up. And the DEI brigade, the Purple Hair Platoon and the Rainbow Mafia and the DEI value system, I think you can trace back, and you can get up into BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street. You can get up and watch those videos at the World Economic Forum and those types of things.
So these are globalist agendas.
It sounds so creepy and cringy, but you know what? I'm not a conspiracy guy. I just think most of the stuff that passes for true in the news is BS, and that people just swallow it really easily because people tend to be sheep and followers. They just want it all to be okay. Tell me what to believe, and I'll go along with it. And that's why you see, masks, vaccines, and here's my guns.
Yeah.
So easily in a place like the United States of America, when we should be asking critical questions and thinking and saying, who in the world wants to teach children that boys can have a period and give birth?
Right.
Like, why do you do that? Where is that coming from?
And if you tampons to boys,
and it's not really, there's people who are trapped in that system, I think, and these are people who deserve our compassion and help, who really are struggling with same-sex attraction, gender dysphoria, and all kinds of things that are very, very real. But there are those who profit off the race industry, the racism industry.
It is an industry. Like
huge industry, just like the child trafficking industry and the poverty industry. And Ben Carson can tell you all about the poverty industry and how there's too much money to be made off of keeping people in poverty. And there is massive money and power that, who am I? Don't believe. By the way, here's a tip: never believe celebrities.
Yeah.
Hollywood actors, don't listen to what they have to say. What credibility do they have? Yeah. Okay, I'm one of them, so don't listen to any of what I'm saying. I go back and I see things like, have you ever read the Humanist Manifesto? Have you ever read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals? These are people that presidents, very influential people, read and understand who John Dewey is. They understand who Horace Mann is. They understand who these thought leaders are that are ultimately about dismantling Western civilization and putting power centralized back into the hands of a few. And so ultimately, yes, you will come to a place of globalism. And I don't even mean it in the Left Behind sense. I just mean it in the Napoleon sense. I mean it in the Hitler sense. I mean it in the Kim Jong-un sense. I mean it in the Xi Jinping sense, Chavez sense. That is humanity and the story of the world for since the beginning of time. And what America is something very rare, very unique, and that is the decentralization of power and having no king, that we are citizens. We're not subjects of a king. We're citizens, and we're all under the same law. Even the president of the United States, even the FBI and the DOJ is under law. And who keeps everybody accountable? We, the people.
Constitutional republic.
That's right, constitutional republic. Citizen actually means co-king. We are co-kings in this room, and we are to hold each other accountable. And the primary form of government in our country is self-government. You don't need self-government in a dictatorship because the government will tell you exactly how to behave. And if you don't, they'll punish you. And they have very effective ways of getting you to do stuff. In America, if we want freedom, the whole concept is you've got to be able to govern yourself under some law. I mean, I can't go around shooting people.
Sure.
Right? And what is that law? Our founders understood it was biblical law. It was the idea of love God with all of my heart, and I'm going to love my neighbor as though they were as important as I am. I'm going to treat you the way I want you to treat me. And if we do that, you could sum it up in the 10 Commandments. If you do that with a heart that's been transformed by the gospel, you don't need a king. And government can be very limited, small, and the whole thing runs beautifully. And that's what we had in the very beginning, not perfectly, but increasingly. And that's why we became a pinnacle nation and millions flock and break the law to get here.
Still to this day.
Yeah.
Even more so now than ever.
But I'm just a Hollywood actor. Don't listen to me.
Well, I think for one Hollywood actor might have got that right. But look, I do have the conspiracy idea that everything you said is absolutely true, and the fact that those who would have a globalist agenda have to take out America. And if you read these books, if you read about Marxism and the manifesto, you have to know that you have to take America out in order to have globalism. And to take America out, the best way to do it is through the culture, attacking the nuclear family and going out. And how do you do that? You go after the kids. And you got to play generation. And yes. And kids are weak. Kids are powerless. Why go after the kids? Because they're playing the long game. It's much harder to go after you. Sure.
It's much harder to go after me. But Hitler said it. Hitler said, there are dissenters who disagree with my ideas. Mm-hmm. I care not about you because I have your children in my schools. Mm-hmm. I'm training them 7 hours a day. And in 30 years, you'll be gone. And this will be the only community in reality they've ever known. Game over. Checkmate. You own the field. If you play the long game.
And that's the answer to the who and the what and the motivation, right? They're the people who have this agenda, who want to see America taken out for a one world government, a globalist agenda, and the motivation is to go after their children for the same reasons Hitler would have went after their children. You know,
you've heard the term we get tagged like, parents who stand up for their children in school boards are domestic terrorists.
Right.
I was just talking with Pete Hegseth the other day, who, puts his life on the line. Army Ranger, I believe he was a Ranger. And he's like 20 years later, after I'm out there fighting the terrorists, they're calling me one. Mm-hmm. My own team is calling me one.
Yeah.
And this is the crazy world that we live in, where right is wrong and wrong is right and good is evil and evil is good. But you're right. At the very end of the day, in order for globalists to win, they've got to take out America first. They've got to take out sovereign nations. And to take out sovereign nations, you've got to mock them, belittle them, fill them with fear and doubt. And then you come up with terms like global terrorists for parents who actually love their kids and don't want the government to mutilate their children's bodies. And then the other term is Christian nationalist. You're a Christian nationalist. Look at that flag on your head. Look at that. You got a cross on your arm. You're a Christian nationalist. You're like a Nazi or something. Mm-hmm. And you know who hates nationalists? And you know who came up with the term nationalists? It used to just be called Christian patriotism. That's what it used to be called. My grandpa was a Navy corpsman in World War II and fought on the island of Iwo Jima. He's a hero. Patriotism's big in our family. He loves God. You know who hates the nationalists is globalists.
That's right.
Because the very definition of globalism is there are no individual sovereign nations anymore. It's all one. There's one big fat nation, one gigantic corporation. Isn't it interesting? The very ones who cry for, take down capitalism, take down, the sovereign nations. They're the ones that actually want to control everything from the top and be the biggest corporation, the biggest nation. It's just a planet Earth corporation called globalism. It's a planet Earth religion called secular humanism. So it's all a big deceptive trap. And we're like mice, many of us, just walking toward it because the cheese smells good. And, guys like you, thank God, are out there warning them the cheese isn't free. There's a great price.
What's your take on, with the Bible's perspective on nations and borders?
My understanding is that the Bible, written by God, speaks of the one and the many, often as a theme throughout the whole thing. We have one God, we have three persons within the Trinity. I have one body and I have many members. I have my hands, my arms, my legs, my head. The family of faith, we have one body of Christ, and yet there are many members with different gifts and talents. There are different spheres of authority that God has given, and we see that family authority, we have church authority, and we have civil government authority. The church can't tell the government what to do. The government can't tell the church what to do. We even call that the separation of church and state.
Which most people get backwards.
They get backwards.
Right.
But there's sphere sovereignty. You don't get to reach your hand in somebody else's backyard and do what they've been given authority to do. And within our government, we have sphere sovereignty of the federal level, and then we also have the individual states. That's the beauty of checks and balances within our Constitution. So I think you have the one nation under God with individual states' rights, and then you have counties within those states, and you have cities within those counties. And so I think on the global stage, I like the idea of separate sovereign nations as part of one big planet Earth.
Yeah.
Because it keeps runaway rogue power in check.
Yes.
Right? If Cuba goes sideways, they don't run the whole world. If they did, who would stop them? I mean, God can stop them.
Sure.
But I don't want another flood. Thank God there's not going to be another flood.
Yeah.
But I don't want other natural disasters. I like that there is the United States of America and that there is other nations. And yeah, we should have voluntary unions for the cause of good, which we can only do if our heart's right with God in the first place. And the idea of one global government, man, that's scary to me because man's heart is broken.
Yes.
Pick a dictator, anyone in history, and you tell me which one you'd like to be under the thumb and authority of if he was the ruler of the entire world. Who would you appeal to? Where could you go?
This agenda that we're seeing, and again, I believe it's from this globalist agenda that's infected America, has put a lot of people in fear. And so most concerning is it's silenced a lot of pastors. Pastors have said, hey, we don't get political. We don't talk about politics. What would you say? Would you say to churches, congregant members, Christians, pastors about not getting political in the harm in that, the consequences of that?
I got to pause when I answer a question like this because my knee-jerk reaction is to just like pounce on something that I disagree with so strongly than pastors who say I shouldn't get involved in politics. And I understand that's generally how 99% of Bible-reading Christians are taught, even in seminaries. And you go back and talk to Bonhoeffer, you go back and talk to William Wilberforce, you go back and talk with the founders and the Puritans and the Pilgrims, and you go ask them what they would think of not getting involved in civil government. They would say, what are you talking about? That's like not locking your house at night. That's like saying, I don't want to have a gun to protect my family. I mean, civil government is an institution that is not something the secular world made up. This is something that God created and gave to Noah right after the flood when he told him to institute the death penalty. Civil government is a gift to keep evil in check. If we hand all the guns and all of the laws and the lawmaking ability and the authority to enforce those laws and all of the judges who interpret whether or not you're innocent or guilty over to the bad guys, you've effectively just signed a suicide pact. What do you think they're going to do? So the whole idea is that the gospel, in my view, is a totalizing force that is meant to comprehensively change the world. It is not just meant to clean up my heart from sin and make me ready so when Jesus says, beam them up, we all get out of here and go to heaven so that the earth gets torched. Therefore, let's just not worry ourselves with worldly things. I don't think that's the narrative in the Bible. I don't think the world is this sinking Titanic and our job is just to get in the lifeboat and let it go down. I think that the gospel is God's new project where he's not trying to get us from earth to heaven, but he's using us to colonize earth with the life of heaven. That's what the Lord's Prayer is all about. Lord, may your kingdom come. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so I want to do everything that I can to be a conduit and a vehicle to bring good, wholesome, and restorative forces to the things that are broken. And I want to make inroads into the darkness and take out and uproot the evil wherever I can.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Like, I mean, to me, there's so much confusion and there's so much this ugliness and evil. And you know, people talk political. Like, I personally don't believe this at this point. It's a Republican or Democrat or left or right or conservative or liberal. I think it's good and evil, and you fall on one of those sides. And so there's so many questions that people in our communities have, and if they can't go to the church to get a biblical worldview answer from their pastor on these topics, then where are they?
Yeah, where are they going to go? They're going to, you know, what they're going to do with AI. You're just going to ask, hey Siri, who should I?
She's always listening.
How creepy was that?
Yeah.
You know, who should I vote for? Who's telling the truth? And we stop thinking.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. We've got to be saturating our minds with truth. We've got to have objective standards for right and wrong. We can't just drink the Kool-Aid from people who stand to profit off of us agreeing with them.
Right.
And we've got to protect our children.
Yeah. Otherwise, we forfeit our voice to secular politicians.
You know, it's just an interesting thought. Can I jump in here with my own?
Absolutely, yeah.
My own little. Yeah. You talk about secular politicians. I don't think secular politicians are secular at all. In fact, I think they're actually too religious for me. They've just got a different religion. They worship human beings, and that religion is called secular humanism. Yeah. Man is God. And they have their own twisted set of 10 commandments, and they're pushing it and forcing this dogma down the throats of Americans everywhere, through corporate America, through media, through the economics, through the borders and everything else. And those twisted 10 commandments, you know what they are? LGBTQIADEI.
Plus.
Yeah.
Plus whatever.
Yeah, we got, and we got more.
Yeah.
And if you don't fall in line with that dogma, that is grounds for banishment from society. It's not safe to participate in secular politicians' religion. It's not safe for my children to participate in that kind of thing. And they demand the sacrifices of the most precious thing we have, and that is our children. And they want them for 7 to 8 hours a day to train them away from what's truly valuable.
Yeah. One of my biggest issues when I see these drag queen story hours that you're combating effectively, and I love it. One of my biggest issues when I see it is not with the drag queen, because that's a very broken, mentally ill person, in my opinion, it's always men. It's never women dressing up
as dudes. Although I saw one in the airport today. I was concerned.
Well, at the story hours, usually like some man dressed up as a woman, right?
Yes.
And portraying herself as sexy, reading the children. Yeah, but...
Right. You don't see a girl in there with a hairy back and he's hanging out in army boots thinking that's going to make a career for him.
Yeah,
probably not.
Yeah. But it's the parents. I'm less upset at that guy.
Right?
At that guy. What kind of parent is it bringing their children, their 3, 4, 5-year-old child, to subject them to that?
Bro, all I can say is that this is either a parent that is just as confused themselves, or they've got some easy way to make some money or something like that.
Exploitation.
Exploitation. But it's maddening, and so much of it's optics. It's not difficult. I've been to these meetings where there's 4 people in attendance at these things, and they make it out to be like, Oh, they had the big thing and the parents and they all you got to do is, I'm in the movie business. I know how to do it. Just fill the frame. That's all you got to do is fill the frame for the one shot and it looks good. And then you tell the story, right? It's like some of our presidential candidates right now, right? I mean, like defying reality of what we know by just telling a story, spinning a tale that just gets everybody, wow.
You say it enough, people.
Yeah, and just pull the frame in just enough so you can see that 25 people showed up. Or pull the frame in so you can't see that 25,000 people showed up. You control the narrative, especially to children whose minds are soft and malleable and easily manipulated. You can tell them anything. They believe the moon's made of cheese and they'll believe that a man can have a baby.
I had to pause on that too. So in that, the Guinness Book of World Records had this issue where they claimed that they had the biggest library story hour with the drag queen story hour.
Yeah, they did it.
They turned around and tried to trump it, and you did.
Yeah, yeah.
So what happened there?
So on June 1st of this year, Guinness World Records recorded the largest drag queen story hour in history, and I'm glad it wasn't the largest drag queen. That would have been scary. It was the largest drag queen story hour, and they had 263 people in attendance.
Okay.
I mean, 263 people. When we did our very first Wholesome story hour in downtown Indianapolis, we had 3,000 people show up. So we called Guinness and said, hey, we have an event coming up in August. It's called See You at the Library. And we're asking parents and grandparents all over this country to meet one another at their local library, sign up for a story hour at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we'll all do this simultaneously. We're going to sing God Bless America. We're going to pray and thank God for our country, ask for his protection. And then we're going to read our own choice of books. It could be Stuart Little. It could be James and the Giant Peach. It could be my book, As You Grow, or somebody else's book. And guess what? We had 360 libraries participating in this one story hour in 50 states across the country with over 35,000 people in attendance. And crickets from Guinness. They wouldn't answer our emails. They even denied that they received our submissions for showing up after they acknowledged our submissions for this event.
Yeah.
So you can see that they just, you play dumb when you need to, and you blow the horns when you want to make a big show, depending on what you want people to believe.
As I watch all this unfold, one of the things I've recently thought was, what this country needs is we need a new Mr. Rogers.
Come on, let's go.
You were thinking of that too, and so you're gonna step in and try to fill those shoes and be the new Mr. Rogers.
I was thinking of wearing my cardigan sweater here today, but then I just thought, I need to look a little tougher, so I went with the camo. So
there's this rumors. I heard it's not true, but there's rumors that he had some sleeve tattoos under those.
Did he? Maybe he did. You never know.
Yeah.
But every kid felt safe with Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
And from what I know of Mr. Rogers, from what I've read, from what I have researched, he was the real deal. That he wasn't a slippery, slimy pedophile. He certainly wasn't dressing in miniskirts and high heels and G-strings, teaching kids perverted stuff to confuse them. He was talking about the difficult cultural issues of the day because he understood that a lot of kids were living in divorced homes, single parents. They didn't have anybody to talk to, latchkey kids, and they needed somebody that they could trust. And he talked about things like divorce. He talked about things like racial tension and other really important things, and he took the time to listen. Kids felt safe. Well, today, everything's moving so fast for kids, and you got Bluey and Miss Rachel, and you got everything crazy on Disney and Nickelodeon, and now they're pumping it with the trans agenda, the non-binary agenda. You got all this stuff that we decided, why don't we bring back Mr. Rogers in a modernized version for kids? So Brave Books and I started a brand new TV show called Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk. Iggy is a little green puppet iguana that is actually created and operated by the guy that took over for Jim Henson for Kermit the Frog.
Okay.
It worked on Sesame Street with Elmo and the whole rest. The guy's phenomenally talented. And I'm Mr. Kirk. And I don't wear a cardigan sweater in it. I wear a leather bomber jacket. But there's some serious Mr. Rogers vibes as we sing lullabies to kids. We give them the blessing out of the book of Numbers. May the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And then we teach them with great dialogue, beautiful animation, and high energy about subjects like the sanctity of life, all life, life in the womb, disabled life, and elderly life. We teach them about the reality of gender from God's perspective. There's a great episode called Elephants Are Not Birds. And it's a story that I read to my little 5-year-old iguana Iggy. And it helps him to understand an issue because in Iggy's life, he's confused about whether or not Mr. Kirk really loves him because he's not a human, he's an iguana. And there's a bird that lives outside the treehouse. It's a vulture named, wait for it, Culture, who lies to him and deceives him and says, he would love you more if you were actually a real human boy. You're a reptile. And so what Iggy decides is to go to the computer and ask Siri, what does a likable human boy look like? What does a likable human boy talk like? What does he look like and sound like? And all of a sudden he starts changing his physical appearance from this little iguana, puts on a wig, tries to grow like some facial hair and put on a leather jacket. And he's like, I come in and I'm like, hi, Iggy, how are you? He's like, no, Iggy left the chat, dude. My name's Chad. Actually, his name is Chad. Chad, and I'm a likable human boy. And he's like altering his persona to fit what he thinks
to be loved
will make him loved.
Yeah.
And he learns the lesson that God made you exactly the way you are and has a purpose for you that fits with your identity. And nobody can ever change that. And we love you, little man. And these are episodes kids need to actually see. Why? Because Disney's teaching them the opposite at 3.
What are some examples of Disney doing that?
Nickelodeon, Disney, and others, they have a massive increase of trans characters in the show. So rather than just overtly teaching you a value set, like boys can be girls, they'll just have Gonzo say, you know who's playing Cinderella this year in the play? Me, Gonzarella. They'll have dinosaurs with 2 dads. And that's just the normal construct of the storytelling. So they're just overtly at times with graphic images and instructions and this kind of thing, to just normalizing things that are very not normal and shouldn't be taught as normal to kids.
So how could people tune in to
Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk?
Iggy and Mr. Kirk.
So it's coming out this fall.
Okay.
The green carpet premiere, we don't do red carpet. Iggy, he's green, and his agent demanded a green carpet premiere in Nashville, is coming up, and you'll be able to watch it everywhere. Okay. So we're going to put it on streaming platforms everywhere so that everybody can see it. We've wrapped the first 2 seasons. That's 20 episodes of the show. And we talk about First Amendment rights. We're teaching children about freedom of speech. We're warning them about the dangers of communism and socialism, gender reality, sanctity of life, forgiveness, the gospel, all of these things. And when it comes out, you'll hear about it. It'll be everywhere.
Okay. And you could still go to the premiere in Nashville?
Yeah, you can go to the premiere in Nashville. Yeah, I mean, tickets are flying out the door, and we've got a lot of friends with kids who want to come there too. Yeah. But if you don't get to make it to the premiere in Nashville, it'll be all over social media, and so you'll kind of get to feel like you were there. If you want to come, you got to let me know.
Yeah. Let's look at the date.
If you want some tickets, come on.
I'd really like
to
check it out. I see, because you just spoke at World Outreach Church at Pastor Alan Jackson, and that's where I first got introduced to it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, it should be really fun. I just went to a premiere in Nashville for Am I Racist? Matt Walsh's film at the Daily Wire.
How was it? I haven't.
3 words. Brilliant, important, bravo. So well done. And I think it should be required viewing for every American right now. It's taking a very, very upsetting subject, which is the indoctrination of a nation, the destruction of patriotism, and it's through satire, which is hilarious comedy. He blows the lid off it and absolutely destroys this whole false narrative by Matt Walsh actually takes an online course and becomes a DEI certified teacher, and then begins teaching DEI classes to help white people decenter their whiteness and to basically get rid of their systemic racism. And when he does this, it exposes so much that it's unbelievably powerful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to insert racism into the culture to divide people.
Yeah, divide them, conquer them.
Old Marxist,
old strategy.
Yeah. I mean,
it works though, right? I mean, that's why you do it. Yeah. I mean, in the military, you got to do it, right? You divide and conquer. People, yeah. You got to divide them up, then you got to and then the best thing, don't even just divide them. Even better, get them fighting against each other. So boom, 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 fight. Then you're just left with one guy at the end.
Sit back and watch. Yeah.
And then you go, guess what? You're not really my friend. We don't really like you.
We don't like you either. Yeah.
Thanks for doing the dirty work for us.
Yeah, that's exactly. And it's what's happening. So I'm so thankful, like what you're doing, what Matt Walsh is doing, like Seth Gruber just came out with the 1916 Project. Like so many amazing people. Like everybody kind of bashes Hollywood and films, but there's some really great film. Angel Studios is doing some great stuff. Mm-hmm. So many great filmakers out there.
It's an exciting time to be alive.
Doing great things and sharing important messages. Well, let's talk about the American Campfire Revival, because that's something I really want to get into, and I know it's super important to you. What is it?
Yeah. Well, I'm getting the vibes right here on your screen. The American Campfire Revival is something that I just did in my backyard out of necessity and frustration in California. Remember, COVID hit. It was 15 days to flatten the curve. That's it. Just stay home for 15 days. All right, we're going to pull together as a country. We're going to do this. We're going to figure out what this is. Everything's shut down. And then all of a sudden, it was longer, and it was months, and it was months. And you still couldn't go to church. You still couldn't go to school. You couldn't open up your business. But you could go to the weed shops. You could go to the abortion clinics. You could go to the strip clubs. All that stuff was open in California because those were essential services.
Stores. Huh? Liquor stores.
Yeah, essential. I mean, my whiskey might be essential. I don't know. Yeah. I live in Tennessee now, and they think it's pretty essential. But you couldn't go to church on Easter.
Right.
But you could go to Costco, you go to the big box stores, and people were crowded in there, or you could be on an airplane. And you're in this little tin can with all these people, sneezing all over each other. And anyway, because we were essentially under house arrest that summer in California because of the lockdown measures given to us by our governor, we then came into the winter. We had the election happen, and then it was Biden's coming into office, and everyone's waiting for the first 100 days of the new administration, right? We always wait for that. What are they going to do in their first 100 days? They're going to roll back all the stuff that the other president did. They're going to lay out their new plan. And I thought, I hate sitting here on the defense. I feel like a duck just sitting in a pond waiting to find out what the hunters are going to do. And I'm like, I want my own 100-day plan. What's ours, particularly as the family of faith? We've got a force for good in the heavens that surely has given us a plan. And I read in the Bible, if my people will humble themselves and pray and will seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear their prayers. I'll forgive their sins. I will heal their land. I'm like, that's what we need. And so I love campfires. I decided that I would take 100 consecutive days, build a campfire in my backyard every night, and go live on Facebook and YouTube with the nation and say, let's humble ourselves, let's pray, let's do what it says, let's turn from our wicked ways and stop just blaming everybody else. They got lots to be blamed for, but so do we. And God says he'll come to our aid. And let's seek the right way. And I started teaching through a book called The American Covenant, which essentially retells our faith backstory and roots and the source of our Constitution and Bill of Rights and where all of that comes from and how they implemented it to create the freest, strongest, most blessed and generous nation in the world.
What's the name? What's the title of this book again?
American Covenant is the name of the book. And it's my favorite book. I taught through it for 100 days and prayed with people. And we sang songs and we did it all around the campfire. And I called it the American Campfire Revival. And that was like a lifeline for people during the time where they felt so isolated and so without hope. It gave me courage, gave me hope. And I've started it back up again. We started with the first 100 days of the Biden administration. Now we're going to finish with the last 100 days of that administration leading up to the election. And I'm going through my new book called Born to be Brave, How to Be a Part of America's Spiritual Comeback. And it's essentially recounting everything I learned at the Drag Queen Story Hours, recounting what I learned at CU at the library, and recounting what I've learned doing all of these children's things, all of these adult things, having to have protection and security and all these things, going to all these public places, talking with public officials, and learning that every single one of us has a part to play and we can do something. And what we need to do is draw down on our courage and our bravery, combining that with our faith and our love.
Man, I love that so much, Kirk, because right now, it's a pet peeve of mine is people who sit back and complain.
Yeah.
There's a lot to complain about, by the way. But we need, when I say we, conservatives, and even more specifically the body of Christ, we need to be people of action. And
that's right.
You could take your moment to voice your concerns, but then what are some action steps? And action steps could be as simple as joining in, the American Campfire Revival, joining in that, being part of it. I believe an action step is intercessory prayer for our nation and participating in those kind of things and gathering others to be part of a movement of truth seekers and truth speakers and to turn to God in a time that our country needs revival.
That's what we need. We need it more than anything. I got a buddy of mine named Ray Comfort, taught me a lot of really important good stuff. He said there's three kind of people in the world. There's jawbones, and those are the people that just talk about doing great things. Man, they just run their mouth all the time. They're jawbones. And then there are the wishbones. They wish they could be like Chad. They wish they could be like these people who do great things. And one day they hope that they will. Both of them usually don't do too much. And then there's the backbones. Those are the ones who stand up, they lean in, and they run forward. They run at the problem. They got steel in their spine, they got a backbone, and they do something. They're people of action. And that's what we need. That's what I want to be. I'm learning how to be that. I understand fear, but the same guy told me, he said, Kirk, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the conquering of it. It's doing the right thing even though you're afraid. Do it anyway.
Yeah, I think it was Billy Graham who said it. I can't remember the exact quote, but he said, when men stand up and are courageous, the spines of others are stiffened. Yes. So when you have that backbone guy, then the jawbone and wishbone people, some of them will stand up too because that backbone guy stood up, and it takes leaders in every area. But when we stand up, other people will as well.
You're having that effect. The guests on your show are having that effect. That's why I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing. It's so important. And you know who's a great example of that? King David, when he was a little kid.
Yeah.
Here's the whole army of Israel is up against the Philistines, and they say, we're going to send out our best fighter. You send out your best fighter. They send out Goliath, and the Israelites are looking at each other like this, like, I'm not going out there. I'm not going out there. Right? That's like the bantamweight guy, going out up against the heavyweight champion of the world, and they're all going like, this is stupid. What are we going to do? And then here comes David, this kid. He comes out there with a slingshot. And his brothers must have thought, well, say goodbye to him. He's going to die. But he had courage. And you know why? Because he understood that Goliath was not the giant. That there was one standing behind Goliath that he could see who made Goliath look like a midget. And that was Almighty God of heaven.
Yeah.
And he had power and strength. And all he had to do was do the best that he could. Through the slingshot, stone connects with forehead. The rest is history. And all of his backbone jumped into his brother's backbones, and the whole army was on the attack, just like you said.
Yes. We need some Davids right now.
That's right. We need lots of Davids.
Yeah. Well, you're doing it. So Born to Be Brave hasn't dropped yet, right?
No, Born to Be Brave is the brand new book, the first book that I've written for adults. I was writing all these books for kids, but the adults are the ones who I see need courage.
Yeah.
And gas in the tank and a track to run on. And so I wrote Born to Be Brave for the parents and for the grandparents. And it comes out October 8th. So we are doing the best we can to tell everybody about it.
Yeah, so that's coming soon when this episode drops. And if it's not October 8th yet, pre-order the book.
Please.
For those who understand, and you've heard me talk about with my books, it's so important to pre-order books. It helps us who write books. Obviously, Kirk and I, we write books. It's not about selling books. It's about getting important messages out, things that people can lock arms with to make an impact and change. But when you pre-order books, it helps the retailers know the book's selling. They buy more. It has this chain reaction effect, and it's a very effective way to support these missions to get behind. So definitely go on anywhere books are sold and get your copy of Born to Be Brave, pre-order it.
That's right. Yeah, please do. And I've even got thousands of them that the publishers got me signing. You know, so I'm like signing like, you know, my name and your name and Bible verses and stuff like that. So you can check all of those out.
You start off writing a lot of big message, and then by the end
your hands cramped up. You can't do it anymore.
Your name, yeah.
Yeah. So you can get it at Amazon. You could also go to my website at kirkcameron.com, and we've got the autograph versions and the non-autograph versions there.
On the, I want to go back to it because I don't want to miss it. The American Campfire Revival.
Yeah.
Where could people find that and participate there?
Yeah. So I had mentioned that I did this during the COVID era. Well, we have reignited the American Campfire Revival. No longer in Tennessee. I moved California. I moved to Tennessee. So I don't use lighter fluid to start my wood. I just use Tennessee whiskey, and it works great. And now every Sunday,
California, I'm sure, is a fire ban. You get fined.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't know what they use out there anymore. Some plant-based alcohol. But the American Campfire Revival is on every Sunday night and every Wednesday night, and it's on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram. And we're going through my book, Born to Be Brave, and giving people reasons to believe that the opposition is not too big for us. Culture is ours to create, that our faith backstory is the roadmap for the future, and we can learn from that, and how to leverage all these truths and ideas we're talking about with their friends, their family, and their community to bring real transformation to the society and realign the nation with good American constitutional biblical values. And we can do it because if we're members of the family of faith, we were born to be brave.
Yes, yes. YouTube channel is
Kirk Cameron Official.
Kirk Cameron Official, yeah.
Kirk Cameron Official. I think the guy that's got just Kirk Cameron, he's probably got more followers than I do. So, but we're getting there.
But man, we just found some fake accounts.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, like ours, they popping them up and asking people. I'm like, by the way, if you ever had an account from me or Kurt and somebody's asking you for money, it's not me.
That's right. Asking you out on a date.
Yeah,
not me.
Right, not me. Yeah. Okay. Did we miss anything? I want to make sure that this audience gets engaged and gets behind you.
No, man. You've been so gracious to ask me about my life and what's going on, and I just love being on your show, and I love what you're doing, and thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Well, man, same here. I'm so proud to know you and things you're doing. And we have some amazing sponsors on the show that are super thankful for you coming on. Smith & Wesson, Vortex Optics, Bio Accelerators, a stem cell company out of Colombia, BioPro, pharmaceutical company. We have Ally Wealth Management, a wealth management company, and Gators Eyewear. So just some amazing companies. And this is the first time this is up. This is my new Smith & Wesson 6mm arc with a Vortex scope and rangefinder, Gemtech scope, so a Gemtech suppressor. So I haven't even shot it yet. So we're gonna go out. And, I'm gonna get a chance to go out and shoot it, and then we're gonna go shooting after. But so the sponsors, Mighty Oaks Foundation, which is our foundation, gave you a gift bag. We have some books in here, some swag. You could open that later. But
Thanks,
but just
man.
A bunch of stuff from Mighty Oaks Foundation.
Beautiful.
A Mission Without Borders. There you go. And we have BioPro supplements. But by the way, there's nothing I'll ever promote that I don't do myself. And usually I'll spend time making sure it's something I want to promote. BioPro is it's kind of older Eastern medicine. It's antler, like from deer antler to velvet off of antlers, and it helps your own human growth hormone. So it's non-synthetic, natural. And the daytime one really helps with like your metabolism, your libido, your immune system, and cognitive. And then nighttime one, I used to really have trouble sleeping. And as soon as I start taking this, and several other guys gave the same testimony, I went from like 4 hours a night to 9 hours a night. So take it every day and every night. So you can try it out, see if you like it. If you like it,
cool,
they'll definitely want to send you more. And the kind of grand finales here are some Gators Eyewear.
Yeah.
If we're gonna go shooting, you have to have some good glasses. And so Gators Eyewear is they make the best ballistic lenses. And when I talk about doing things before I even knew the owners of Gators, I wore them forever, from skydiving to shooting. In Ukraine, all of our team would wear them in Ukraine. And so Gators has been around for about 35 years, and they're all American made. So amazing company, amazing people. Lastly, I have a gun here from Smith & Wesson, and we have a Vortex optic on it, MNP 2.0. It's got a metal frame on it, and this is double ported. So as you get into shooting, recall management is super important. And Smith & Wesson listens to their ambassadors and their shooters. And so this dual port keeps the gun nice and flat. It has one of my favorite things about it. It has this, a lot of times you're shooting optics, you get gas and gun oil on your optic. And so they put this this cut into it that throws it away from the optic. So a lot of it's like one of the newest, latest, and greatest guns for Smith & Wesson. And on it we have a Defender ST Vortex optic. And today after we leave here, we're gonna go out to the range.
Sweet.
And let you shoot it. So
sweet. Oh man,
it is a super sweet gun, and I think you'll love shooting it. So.
Yeah. Wow.
So
thank you, man.
Yep. Just a little thank you from all of our sponsors. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're gonna Kirk and I are gonna break away and go do some shooting, and we'll see you next week. Hey guys, thank you for watching this episode of The Resilient Show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you hadn't already, please click subscribe so you don't miss any future content. We have so many amazing guests scheduled, and you don't want to miss it.